Welcome to the October 2nd meeting of Ames Noon Rotary Club. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Thank you. Please remain standing. Are there anyone in our Rotary family that we should be thinking about today? Okay, we'll just take a moment and think of someone and give them your good thoughts. Thank you. You can take a seat. All right, we'll get into announcements today. And well, actually, let's do guest first. And microphone, Louie's got it. Looks like Beth has a guest today. Beth.
Hello. My guest today is Jen Peterson from Become More Group, and I've been telling her how great this group is and that she should come and visit. So I welcome Jen.
Do our welcome song?
Is that it? Okay, here we go. You're on your own today because we don't have a song leader except for me, so I will play the piano for you.
Thank you, Louie. Now we'll do announcements. Okay, birthdays. All right. Should we sing happy birthday? All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Wonderful. Anniversaries. Any anniversaries, this is your reminder, okay? Hopefully it wasn't October 1st, but if it's October 2nd, you still got a chance. So happy anniversary to those up on the slide too. Should we sing to them as well? Let's do it. Let's do it. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary, dear Rotarians. Happy anniversary to you. Thank you, Louie. All right, and membership. Wow, look at that. Jim Patton, 43 years. Tom Hertz, 43. We can give a round of applause for that. What a great list. Thank you for being members of Rotary. So, all right. So last week, we had a fabulous presentation from Gregor Baum, who was a Rotaract District Governor at the North Carolina Wesleyan University. And this came via George Belitzo, so a big thank you to George for helping us bridge that connection. It was a really fantastic discussion and a presentation for Gregor, a young man who's has spent a lot of time and energy into the mental health space. He has a unique experience with that, being a college athlete, coming over from Germany and playing tennis, being injured, and developing and really devoting a lot of his energy and time to helping our youth and really to anyone, quite frankly. And so you'll see up on the screen right now the Rotary Mindset. There's a lot of great materials that if you would like access to that Karen has. File sizes are pretty large, so it's hard to email, but would really encourage everyone, if you didn't get an opportunity to listen last week, please go onto the YouTube page and watch and listen to that again. It was fantastic, and I think will be just a great kind of jumping off point to maybe some more dialogue with Gregor and what he's got going. So please do that. All right. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. It is October is Community and Economic Development Month for Rotary, and we're happy to and pleased to have a representative from Ames Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development, Eric Smidt. As a communications professional for over 16 years, Eric has been able to take a creative approach to tell engaging stories through a variety of mediums. He has extensive experience managing several social media accounts and website maintenance. He has launched, written, designed 3 separate award-winning quarterly publications, as well as a monthly video podcast in the field of education. He leans heavily on his skills in video, photography, design, and writing in order to enhance the brand he is representing, which today is Ames Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development. He has 4 documentary film credits to date and has earned his master's education degree from Iowa State University. So he's been with the Ames Chamber for just over a year now as Vice President of Marketing and Communications. Prior to that, you might have seen Eric leading Director of Communications with the Ames Community School District. And so we are pleased to have Eric with us today. Let's give him a warm Rotary welcome.
Quite the introduction, Mason. Thank you. This is really an honor for me. When Dan asked me to present to Rotary, he gave me a list of ideas, and he's like, "But go there and talk about what you know best." And so weirdly, that's about I'm going to talk about communications and the Ames Chamber of Commerce. So Mason noted a few things already. Thankfully, know many of you already in this room just through my role that I've been with the Ames Chamber of Commerce for just over a year. But as Mason noted, I was also the Director of Communications for the Ames Community School District. So in all, I've lived in Ames and been part of this community for the past 20 years. My wife and I, we've lived here for 20 years. And so what I'm going to talk about today is really my path into communications, but then ultimately what that has looked like, not only for the Ames Chamber of Commerce, but for the community as well, and how our strategy around communications has shifted over the past year. So as noted, I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Ames Chamber of Commerce. So to understand communications, and to be honest with you, I did all of this organically. I learned about communications just by doing it. So my undergraduate degree is actually in education. And so when I was in college and I was 20 years old, I said, I'm going to set out to be a teacher. And that's, in fact, what I did do. I was a history teacher for a while. And my first job out of school was at a place called Woodward Academy. So some of you may be familiar with that, but I was 23 at the time. I would have taken any job. It's newly married. I had no idea what, the future was going to hold. And of course, you start applying and you take whatever job is presented to you. And to be honest with you, I had no idea what Woodward Academy was. I, read, the website and I had no clue. And so I get in there, and for those of you who don't know, it's a residential facility. It's a school for at-risk youth. And so they have students from all across the country that get court-ordered and adjudicated to attend there. And it can be challenging at times. In fact, it can be very challenging at times working with some at-risk youth. But I was there for 13 years, and part of that was due to the fact that I really enjoyed the people. I enjoyed the students that I was working with. And simultaneously to that, because I'm going to get around to communications here, my wife and I, we picked up some of the skills that I now use as a profession just as a hobby. So we started doing photography and videography work, and we didn't have any kids at the time, so we had all the time in the world just for our hobbies and just to spend time with each other. And we started doing weddings for clients, and my wife was doing photography, for families and stuff. And it was neat that we were growing this skill set that we didn't have. I mean, she had a degree in sociology of all things, and when you fast forward 20 years, and we're both doing essentially communications and content creation. And so we started doing that just as a hobby, and I started bringing it into my work life as well. And then over the course of the next decade or so, I was able to work on a lot of these things that are up on the screen. You know, the skills that communication professionals need, the channels that we use to communicate, you know, today, digitally, you know, websites, social media, e-newsletters, eventually podcasts, and of course print publications as well. And I started developing all of these skill sets really without any stress, because, you know, the school at the time, they had absolutely nothing. So anything that I was doing to contribute was a bonus. And so I started to develop all of these things. Then, after 13 years of being there, but really 10 years of working on communications, a job opened up at the Ames Community School District. And it's funny because I've lived in Ames the entire time. And, you know, when you look back on your career, it's funny how things just sort of, you know, the path is laid in front of you. So I was doing communications when I was at Woodward in education, specifically in education. And the one job in Ames that was the equivalent to what I was doing was at the Ames Community School District, and it happened to open up. And so, you know, I, of course, applied for the position, and having lived in Ames for all of those years already, and I essentially had a portfolio of that 10 years of work, and I told the superintendent at the time, Dr. Tim Taylor, I essentially, you know, in the entire interview process, I said, if you like what you see here, this is what I can do for the Ames Community School District. And he offered me the job, and wow. So I spent those early years really figuring out the workflow of things and, you know, the creative part of how to communicate through all of these different channels, because when I got to the Ames Community School District, it's a much different thing. And one of the first things that he tasked me with was, hey, we have a bond referendum coming up, and we should really try to get that passed. Oh, okay. So, you know, how do you do that? And so really for me at that time, the creative part of it and the processes and all the things that I'd worked on, I couldn't focus on those anymore. They had to be automatic because I had all sorts of other things that I needed to focus on. And so here's a few highlights of things that I did over the 5 years that I was director of communications at the school district. Of course, we had the bond referendum passed, and if you've been in the new high school, it's beautiful. It's absolutely wonderful. That was certainly the celebration of my first year with the school district. But simultaneously to that, we launched a publication, quarterly publication, The Amazing Magazine, and I had the honor over those 5 years to produce 20 editions of those. And then we launched a podcast as well. But of course, there was all sorts of things in between that I had to learn while being director of communications. I learned what communications looks like at scale. You know, so prior to that, I was really working on, our audience was very small. And that was great because I could focus, like I said, on the creative part of it. But when you are communicating on behalf of a large organization and one that really reflects the entire community, there's only one way to learn how to do that, and you just jump in and do it. And so I do remember there are several incidents, that makes it sound bad, maybe kind of was, but there's a lot of there are several situations where I would hit send on a communication, and then you can just kind of see it do this across the community. You know, you start seeing it pop up on social media. And it's very interesting, like that feeling, knowing that, you know, those words, and I was the person that hit send on that button, and you just see it do this. You know, it kind of changes your perspective on the power of communications. Of course, through that time as well, I learned about what crisis communication looks like and how you need to, you know, draft something and send it out to parents. And there's always a balancing act of crisis communication, because of course you want to be transparent, but you can't be so transparent so as not to violate someone else's privacy as well. And I'm sure many of you have seen and felt it. You know, public school is a tough communications job. You know, parents across our community, and I'm one of those parents across our community, they send, you know, their most beloved thing in their life to the school, and they want to know information. And so, you know, it can be really challenging at times. And then, of course, communications in the public sector. You know, I've learned a number of different ways about there's always, every year, there always seem to be hot and button topics that come up. For example, we're changing the start times several years ago to the schools, and, that's, change can be challenging, for myself included. And so, how do you articulate that? How do you articulate the reasons why? And so these are, some of the three probably biggest takeaways that have formed my communication strategy over the past several years. And again, there's only one way to learn how to do that, and that's just by jumping in and learning along the way. So through all of that, I formed some house rules that, I personally live by when it comes to communications. I've always placed an emphasis on developing high-quality content. And, it's everybody in this room could be a communicator in some way. With the advent of social media, everybody can have a thought, an opinion, and they can share it with the world. And so, we're all used of, at night in between meetings, that you take a break from work and, you're doing this on your phone. Everyone's going through their own social media. You're listening to different podcasts. Everyone's got a website. And so how do you cut through the clutter? And I always think about that when I do communications reflecting for an organization. And part of the way to do that is to produce content that simply cannot be ignored. And this is something that I developed prior to my time with the school district, but we always place an emphasis on photography and always finding ways that we can hook people into reading more about stories. I don't have to do this as much now, thankfully, in my past year with the Ames Chamber of Commerce, but this was certainly something that I continue to think about, and that's tackle the tough stuff. So as a school district, and when we looked at the public sector of communications, you simply cannot push things under the rug, so to speak. And that was something that I always leaned into when I was in that role, and it's a philosophy that I continue to live by now is, we can tell all of the great and wonderful stories, and I would argue that we should continue to do that, because the world at times can be a very negative place, and there's a lot of positive that is happening, and so we should always start with that. But as things come up, it's important that we also lean into tackling the hard conversations. And if as an organization, if a decision is made with the best intentions and with the best outcomes for whoever, whether it be the students with the school district or the businesses that we work with now, and if that can be unpopular at times, and that's okay, we can lean into that. Being relevant is always something that I think about. Every industry has acronyms and jargon that are confusing to the general public, and so we should certainly be conscious of that as well. And I have two more. Digital is great, and I just referenced how in social media there's all sorts of content available, but sometimes talking in front of all of you is the best way to communicate. We're, as the Chamber of Commerce, we're an organization. We're a networking and social organization oftentimes throughout the week, and I think that's one way to dive deep into relationships, and you should go analog. And I'll get to things that are on your table as well. But when I was with the school district, sometimes print publication, people say it's dying. Print publications are dying. It's not dying. People want to be able to read positive stories, and they want to do it on their time. And I know that there's probably a lot of stories that I see, through social media. I just don't spend the time to read them. But sometimes I want to pick up a book. I want to pick up a magazine that I got in the mail. And so, I see that as analog communication. I think it's incredibly important. And of course, to be responsive to inquiry. And whatever the audience that is, really any organization and any business should be responsive. And so it's something that I continue to think about. So a year ago, a little over a year ago, I truly enjoyed what I was doing with the Ames Community School District. I I'd accomplished a lot, and I was getting to the point where really every part of the communications that we had done, we had revamped it all. So from social media to how we're sending communications to parents, we're on the cusp of redesigning our website. We launched a print publication. We redid everything over those course of those 5 years, and I wasn't looking to leave. I was looking to maybe sit back and enjoy the work for a little bit and kind of run into maintenance mode, and then lo and behold, an opportunity was presented to me to move from one large organization in our community that reflects a lot of people into another community organization that reflects a lot of people and has a really profound impact on our community, and that was with the Ames Chamber of Commerce. And it's funny, if any of you have gone through the process of determining what your next career move is, it looks something like this for my wife and I. We were sitting on our patio, and I said, I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to leave. And then an hour goes by. There's no way I can do that. Why would I leave? Why can I do that? And we did that honestly for about 2 weeks. I mean, it was one of those back and forth things. And I suppose that's a compliment to the career that I've had up until then and the work that we were doing. And to be honest with you, it's really rewarding to see the work that I was doing in part being reflected across the community. I mean, that has never been lost on me, the importance of communicating and how it can impact the greater community. So it's never lost on me. But when I did decide to make the move over to the Ames Chamber of Commerce, again, I was in Ames, and I lived here for 20 years, my wife and I. I know what Chamber of Commerce do. I mean, I have a general sense. I can read the website. I have an idea. And then I come in, and within weeks, probably days, I start to get a full sense. And I put, our sign of the Ames Chamber of Commerce that's outside our building and all these arrows to it, because the thing that I didn't realize, and I suppose it was just me, is how many different parts of our community point to that organization. It was mind-blowing to me, and it's still not lost on me. So here is a little bit of a logo dump of things that the Ames Chamber of Commerce interacts with. So I'll briefly touch on a number of them, but the organization, outside of our umbrella organization, the people who work in our office, they're helping run the young professionals organization of our community. Our Main Street organization, they're running that. We're doing economic development in 2 different counties. We host 1 million cups every month. For those of you who don't know, it's an entrepreneurial speaker program, so that happens in the lower level of our office every day. We operate a number of websites, including Work in Ames, so we're doing a lot of workforce development work, and we work actively with both the Nevada and Boone economic organizations. And this is just the start. I mean, there really is, I could go through a whole list of other things that happens within our organization that, quite honestly, I had no idea about. And so I had to take time, and I'm probably still taking that time to unpack all of the things that are happening and how they interact with my work. But one of the first things that Dan Colhane and I talked about was, we have to shift some of this. I mean, I had conversations with people in our office, like, if we're doing all this work, why are we not talking about this work? I mean, this is important work that really impacts our community and certainly intersects with our organization in a great way. And so in the first 90 days, I put these check marks next to it like this was the plan from the beginning, but it wasn't. These are the things in retrospect that we did right away. We needed to increase our output of things that we were sharing with our community. And now it's very difficult me to unwire this, but I continue to think that communications, even from the Ames Chamber of Commerce, which is, not a public organization the same way that the Ames Community School District is, but, we have a responsibility to share all of this great work that is happening. And so we increase the output of work that we were doing. And so a lot of that happened through social media at the time, but it's like, if we're doing the work, and if there's people on our team and in our organization that is doing this impactful work, then we should talk about it more. So we instantly started doing that, and we're continuing to do that to this day. Additionally, we need to do all of that while producing high quality content. And so for me, with a background in photography, we need to show people, not only tell them in writing, but we need to show people what is happening. So if we are hosting a visit from someone, or if we want to just highlight, some of the industry in our area, how can we do that? Yeah, we can write something this long, or we could produce a short video or go in and use some photography in order to do that. And, that applies to a lot of our events that we host, as well as, if for those of you who do interact with our organization, you know that we host a lot of events throughout the year, so much so that it's probably difficult to keep track of them from time to time, and I get that, believe me, I do. But we want our graphics to stand out, from the rest. And so we always have this lens on high quality content. Is it going to take a little bit longer to produce that? Yeah, but that's how we sort of cut through the rest of it. One of the things, it's a parallel to my first year with the school district as well, but I was talking to Dan, I said, there's an opportunity for us not to just share what events that we're doing or this happening, but to dive deeper into our storytelling. And it's not just the storytelling about us, it's the storytelling about our region. And so for those of you who have seen our publication, Traction Magazine, we launched in December of last year, and we print 20,000 of these on a quarterly basis, and we distribute them primarily to the majority of Ames. And we would love, in a perfect world, to be able to distribute this on a quarterly basis to really the 2-county region, and when we find that stashed gold that's buried somewhere, we'll be able to possibly do that. But for the time being right now, the majority of Ames gets this publication on a quarterly basis. And we were very specific when we launched this because, there's a couple pages in here that talk specifically about what the Ames Chamber of Commerce is doing from our events and a little bit of our other programming, but the vast majority of it is featuring the business and industry that's in our region. It's sort of about us. We're producing it, but we want to produce content that really the majority of our audience can really enjoy. And so we're also very conscious, and at least I am when I'm developing stories for this, is that we want it to be a range of things. We could fill all 24 pages of this just talking about the large industry and the economic development that is happening in our region. But I'm very conscious to not do that because that doesn't always resonate with everyone in our community. And so we try to feature some businesses that you may not have heard of, or maybe some that you have but didn't know the story behind that business. And so when you page through, these copies, we have a combination of, some economic development work that's happening across the region, but also highlighting small and local business. And really the fun thing about this publication is that we will never run out of ideas. I mean, there are so many stories that are happening across our community that this could go on forever, and that's really exciting for us. And so with the launch of not only that publication, but we double all of those stories through our social media, through our email that we send to member businesses. We became a storytelling organization. And that is a very conscious shift from just sharing what's happening to rounding out the story, explaining the why behind some of these businesses, but also pairing that with, what I think is a great design for our publication, but the photography as well. And so a bit self-serving now as I look at it, but these are some of me visiting businesses and just connecting with them. And so we go through a process. Right now I'm working on issue 5, and I reach out, I kind of get a running list of ideas that I start to pursue, and I just start individually meeting with the businesses that we're going to feature and highlight, and I just get notes from them, and we develop that into a story, and then we set up a time to do the photography with them. And it's really been, oftentimes, in fact, I told some people in our office today, a lot of the magic that happens always happens behind, the 15-inch screen of my computer, but the real joy that I find is talking with the people behind these stories. And we've gotten some really incredible anecdotal feedback from Traction Magazine, just that the stories and businesses that we've been able to feature and highlight, they've had people come in. Dog-Eared Books is an example. When I wanted to do that story, I think it was in our first or second issue, I thought, well, most people know what that is. They got a pretty prominent storefront on Main Street, and they turned around and said, we had so many people come in after reading the story that maybe they have heard of us, but they've never been into our store. And we've seen that story replicated over and over again, and that's really rewarding for us. So a couple quick notes real quick. So in addition to the Traction Magazine, which is something that I work on every month, and it's really, at least for me, probably the thing, at least thus far, that I'm really proud of. As an organization, when I showed you the Ames Chamber of Commerce and all the arrows pointing to our organization, we have access and operate seven different websites. And so, we partner with the Nevada Economic Organization, and, we can provide updates to those websites in addition to our own and, the Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development, the Main Street Organization. We have so many social media accounts. I couldn't even, I did count, but it's quite a lot. 9 different brands, and just for example, the Ames Chamber of Commerce, we're on 4 different channels alone, and so it's always a beast that we're trying to feed with our different affiliate organizations. Obviously, Traction Magazine we produce quarterly. For those of you who get our email, who are members of ours, there's you get our weekly emails, and then a whole bunch more I recognize. And then so what's next for the organization? So we've spent the year. In many ways, that first year when I was in my position, I took what learned our process, learned what we had from previous years as far as communication, but I found myself just with this emphasis on producing high quality content. And when someone new comes in, and I was that new person, you kind of want to work everything into your own flow. Well, we ended up retouching and redoing a lot of the work over the course of that first year. And now as I we're into my second year, where I'm trying to scale some of that up. And so a couple of things that are on the horizon for us, and one of the things that, I said here and I think about quite often is that I didn't realize is, that organization impacts 2 counties. And so how do we position that organization as a regional organization? And so that's some work that we're undertaking right now. Naturally, as part of that, we're due for a website redesign, and so that's going to be on the horizon as well. And then it's just a constant reevaluation of how we're communicating. I mean, I think, at some point we need to probably look at the amount of emails that we send some of you on a weekly basis. It's a lot. Is there an opportunity to condense some of that? Is there an opportunity to condense some of our social media accounts a little bit, and then ultimately redesign some of those, just, so that they're new, they're fresh. It's a constant motion for us. So, with that said, I thank you. Yeah, I talked a lot about the communications when it comes to this Chamber of Commerce, and of course we have a lot going on. It came up at the table I was sitting at. We host a lot of events, and we have one of our signature events this Friday, Manufacturing Breakfast, so we're really excited for that. Oftentimes they're not necessarily reserved for members, but it's oftentimes the members who engage with our organization who get those. With that said, I will say we are having our annual event in December, and we are on the cusp of finalizing some of that information, and so we have author Tommy Spalding coming to speak to our group. So we will be out at Cornerstone Church for that, and it holds a lot of people, and we're going to try to get a lot of people out there as well, and that one will be open to everyone.
Eric, I'm Allison Walter. So you work with a number of different organizations that all have their own director.
Yep.
And probably their own staff. And maybe you didn't mention, but I assume you probably have some other staff that does communication.
Yep.
So talk about how you balance, say, Main Street and Crystal as the director and her vision, and yours and your job and how you work together on that.
Sure, yeah. So the downtown organization is really robust, and so when I take a communications lens to it and I look at, their social media accounts, actually their social media accounts are much higher engagement, at least from a year ago, than with the Chamber of Commerce. And one of the things that I've learned is, we have an audience that is widespread. So I think prior to me coming on, our Ames Chamber of Commerce, the audience that we would speak to would be members. Member businesses and people who work at those member businesses who want to engage with our organization. That certainly continues to be an audience for ours. The downtown organization, because of the type of events that they put on, are very community driven. And so it's a much different audience, and we need to have that lens when we communicate through those channels. So you mentioned in our team, so there's myself, I have another full-time person who works on our team in marketing and communications, and then we have a part-time person as well, and some of the work that she does is she does some of the photography within this publication, but she also runs our downtown social media accounts and stuff like that. So we work very, obviously, closely with Crystal, and as she's the executive director, Crystal Davis, of the Main Street organization, she leads the work, and we support the work.
What does it cost to copy and mail a copy of Traction?
I'll give you ballpark numbers. So the way we produce it, so we produce it all in-house, so some of those costs, we don't have outsourcing costs as far as the production. It's really just time costs from our organization, which, naturally are built in. Strictly from a print and distribution standpoint, the model that we chose was to send to every door direct. And so what we need to do is we needed to pick postal routes, and then they just give it to every household on that postal route. And so we had to make some decisions to take some postal routes out, just from a cost savings perspective. So I think overall we're sending to 2/3 of Ames. It costs us to print and mail $13,000 to $15,000 a quarter.
How many copies is that?
20,000.
So less than $1 a copy at the house.
Yeah.
Eric, repeat that part, please. For the people that are online.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So we print Traction magazine quarterly basis. We choose every door direct. So we pick postal routes that on that postal route, they will deliver this to every mailbox along that postal route. Currently, we send to about 2/3 of Ames, and it costs us between $13,000 and $15,000 a quarter to print and produce.
And the other part that they would have heard is less than $1.
Yeah, less than $1, correct.
Many of us in Ames have become concerned about the lack of communication and sharing news from a local newspaper.
Yeah.
And when you talk about your means of communication, what do you see that the role of the chamber can be in helping to either resurrect or to find a reliable means of communicating the everyday news, many of them being the kinds of features you talk about,
Yeah.
but otherwise what's going on at school board meetings or at
Right.
city council meetings? How can the chamber be involved in that?
So in some ways, I'll give probably a multi-tiered answer to that. We do have, and this doesn't quite answer the question, but for those who subscribe to our public policy newsletter that goes out once a week, we do include links to school board agendas, city council agendas. It doesn't provide a recap, an editorial recap of any of those, but at least people would have easy access to be able to find some of that information. The day-to-day stuff, that is a challenge. It it's tough, and part of it is due to limited resources. Part of it is due to just the clutter of communications as a whole. I mean, we're all inundated with so much information that simply didn't exist, 15 years ago, and it's just so much now that the day-to-day stuff is tough. I mean, part of not the day-to-day solution, but part of the communication solution is, we are fulfilling some through Traction Magazine, but this isn't the timely information. This is, and that's by choice. That's deliberate. We don't include a lot of here's some upcoming events. Here's a recap of city council, only because we desired a publication like this to have a longer shelf life than that. And so we wanted to, you could read our first edition right now that we produced a year ago, and it's still timely. It still goes deep into some of the stories that are in there, and you can get information from it. So not a great answer, I recognize.
There are some people in our church who are wrestling with the flashpoint issue, of is it okay to be gay or is it not okay to be gay? And there are some Christian communities that say it's not okay, and there are some Christian communities that say it is okay. On issues with those kinds of tensions, do you stay away from them, or do you have a way of addressing them that where you try to reconcile people?
Look at you. So I will say, I'll answer in a sort of general sense here. So, we have a public policy component to our organization, and we have a director on staff who leads that public policy. And I'll add another layer to it. Earlier this year, and as we have in several years, we have a state of education, state of healthcare type events. And our role in that is to invite elected officials to be part of those panels, and we've invited superintendents from the area school districts to be part of those panels to be able to answer those questions. And so we do extend invitations to, especially for our public policy part of it, we do extend invitations to elected officials, whether it's from the local, county, state. We do have a part where, we'll take a delegation to Washington, D.C. Every year, and we reach out to the elected officials there as well for them to be able to speak on those topics.
The Chamber Economic Development Group, you've expanded into the Nevada and Boone areas, certainly in the period I've been around. We're also part of this sort of, it gets redefined, but Golden Circle, the Ames, Des Moines corridor, a higher percentage of employees are living in Ankeny, for example. Coming up here, what's your communication strategy to see this, golden era? Just, this is maybe a trivial thing, but they were listing when people were doing Halloween the other day, and you got all these Des Moines communities. Ames isn't on that list, and we're apparently a little bit of an outlier on days. And I'm just curious, as you look at this communication strategy in the bigger sort of area we're part of. It's interesting when it comes to communications and the types of business and industry that intersect with our organization. I would imagine that for some people in the Des Moines area, we are just north enough for some topics. When it comes to business, and we have industry who are looking to land here, in our region, then suddenly Des Moines is really close, and so I think it's probably perspective depending on what topic we're talking about. From a community topic, it might be a little far. From an economic development standpoint, it's really close. And so I don't know if I quite heard your question the right way, or to be able to answer it the best way possible, but.
I have, could I have two questions unrelated? The first one is, my husband and I used to always go to the business after hours social event, and I don't hear about it much anymore.
Okay.
Is it listed somewhere, or you don't have it anymore?
Yep. So on our website, ameschamber.com, we do have a chamber calendar that has all of our events, and it has the registration links through all of that as well. We do promote them through all of our social media accounts, and we include them in our weekly email. I don't know that I could say how you got the information before, or maybe what has shifted between there, but yes, they're available through those channels, through our
Yeah.
website and social media.
I would like to get it on my email, but I don't now, so do you sign up
I'll give
for
you my
that?
card.
Okay, good. My other question is back to your magazine. I live at Northcrest, so there's many, many doors there.
Yeah.
So how do you distribute to like our place or Green Hills or somewhere so that a bunch of people get that?
I will have to check on that. I couldn't say right now. It's quite possible. For a variety of reasons, it may not be one of the postal routes that we currently send to. But I couldn't accurately say yes or no, but if I had to guess, if you don't get it, and I feel like you would know if you did, that may be the case. Yes, correct.
I guess I'm next. But anyway, back to Business After Hours. As one of the co-sponsors, I want to invite everyone in this room to the one in December, which will be at the Alumni Center. So please come. Santa Claus is going to be there.
What date was that?
I don't have the date.
Okay, all right. Well, we got some time to figure that out.
I have noticed that there's more Boone and Slater or surrounding area content. I wondered how you decided what to prioritize or what to highlight.
You know, that is, I'd like to stand up here and tell you that I have this really robust, algorithm and metric to determining the next stories, but that is not the case. But I will tell you a couple things that, we are conscious of. One was, what I mentioned before as far as the different range of stories. I mean, so in our very first edition, we had, for those of you who know him, Dan O on the cover, and he runs Ag Certain out of Boone. And as the author of the story, I'm not sure that I could give you more than a couple sentences to articulate all of the work that happens out at Ag Certain. And so I recognize that, that can kind of translate, if you had a bunch of those types of stories, people might check out a little bit, so we try to have the range of stories that way. But geographically, I am always conscious of that too. I don't sit and say, wow, we need to have a story from Nevada and Boone and Story City and Huxley in every edition, but we do like to broaden the scope of stories that we do tell. And I'll take Flight and Bar and Grill down in Huxley as an example. Huxley's not very far from here. Maybe from here it is, but once you get into the center of Ames, it's really not that far away. And so, people can, it's a great burger. It's a good story. They give back to their local Ballard School District. And so, we want to, and Slater Station in one of our most recent editions, it's another great example. It's a good hang. I took my family out there. It's fun. You can sit outside. And it's a really cool story. We have hundreds of those stories. Again, we'll never run out. But, we do try to, one of the things, and maybe it's subtly through this, and maybe it's not subtle after I acknowledge it, but, we do want to acknowledge the fact that there are great things happening in Nevada. If there are great things happening in Boone, Huxley I already mentioned. And if those great things, they help our entire region. Not everything is just simply, within the city limits of each of those communities. We all operate between them. I mean, how many times have we gone to Ankeny for something because, maybe it wasn't available here? And there are a lot of things that are available here that we should really focus on and highlight and support. And so we're really shifting and trying to be more conscious of the regional impact that we can all have, you know, in this 2-county area.
All right, I'll help us land the plane. And we didn't plant this story. I live in Huxley, and I went to the Flight restaurant last night with my family and ate that burger. So I can attest it's very good. And they do give money back to their education foundation. But Eric, you had a slide up there talking about storytelling. So if someone were here today from out of the state or out of the country, never heard of Ames before, give us, if you best you can, 30 to 60 seconds. How would you describe Ames? How would you tell that story?
Oh, gosh, how do you do the elevator pitch?
The
on
elevator
the
pitch.
Region? You know, the easy stuff is obviously, you know, economically, Iowa State University, they're a huge driver and huge point of pride for us. You know, the research park as part of that. You know, we have an incredible Main Street organization. You know, the thing that's not really lost on me, and this may be low-hanging fruit, but, you know, I was at a football game, Iowa State, you know, we were tailgating with friends, and we went to the game, and it shouldn't be lost on any of us that, you know, we are one of 2 communities in the state of Iowa that has something like that. And so, you know, to say that, wow, Iowa State is the, you know, that is what Ames is, you know, that doesn't really round out the entire story. But, you know, I continue to have a sense of awe about the community that I've lived in for 20 years, that my kids will grow up here and be part of this community. It's none of it should be taken for granted. You know, nearly every other community in the state of Iowa does not have what we have. And there are so many great things that are on the horizon, not for our community. And I mean, you know, Sci-Town is certainly part of that, but you know, the Aquatic Center, the Link project along Lincoln Way, I mean, you know, this community is going to look a lot different, you know, 5 to 10 years from now. And that can feel like a long time, but really in the grand scheme of things, it really isn't. And, you know, the list could go on. And so that's what I think about when I do think about community.
Thanks again, Eric. And before you go, we would love to get your autograph on the back of this book here that we will give to a 2-year-old at their well child checkup through Raising Readers. And if you haven't noticed, there's some paper slips on your table today. Please take a minute to fill them out now. Take them with you. Snap a picture on your iPhone to take it with so you can email Karen. But we would love to get some feedback. And if you don't provide feedback, silence is approval. So here's your opportunity to tell us how we're doing. Otherwise, we just assume everything's good. So again, Eric, I didn't pull this quote up because of you. It's really more probably directed at me. But it's from Robert Frost that said, half the world, this is about communication, half the world is composed of people who have something to say and can't, and the other half who have nothing to say and keep saying it. So with that, I will stop. We'll pull up the 4-way test, and we'll close this meeting out. So the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?